What's up? This is Orville Klein with Slam Academy. I've been an Ableton certified trainer since 2009. I'm really stoked about all these new features and devices in Ableton Live 11, and I'm really excited to show you the new Spectral Resonator in Ableton Live 11 today. Let's check it out. So if you heard this little beat I started, it started with just a little chord progression. I picked a key, D minor, and drew in some chords using the new scale mode in our MIDI editor. And what I did was I took the most basic sound I could find, which was just our standard piano, and these chords by themselves sound like this. So it sounds clean. It sounds like a generic piano, right? Now I have a million plugins and a lot of different instruments, but what I'm going to do is attempt to use the Spectral Resonator to turn the standard piano into something more interesting and musical and more synthetic. I don't know. Let's try it out. So let's go here to the new audio effect categories, and if we go to pitch and modulation, one of our new devices is the Spectral Resonator. The way I think about the Spectral Resonator, it's kind of like a combination of Ableton's previous vocoder and the Resonator. We can use MIDI, or it can analyze its own incoming audio to analyze harmonics of the sound and then make it resonate in different ways. So let's see what happens if I just play it right now with just the default settings on this piano sound. So it's only listening to one note at a time, and it's not very clear. So what I'm going to do is switch the mode from internal to MIDI mode, and then I'm going to select the track that it's on as the MIDI input source for this. This makes it really easy to route MIDI from anywhere and send it into the Spectral Resonator. And let's hear how it sounds now. So it sounds like it's triggering stuff to play, but right now the MIDI mode is on mono. So I'm going to switch it from mono to polyphonic, and I'm actually going to increase the polyphony up to 16 just to give me more voices than I'll even need. And let's hear how it sounds now. Right away, it sounds a lot more interesting than just that standard piano. It almost sounds like a 106 or something like that. Let's try one of the chorus algorithms right here for our modulation mode. Wow, that's very Juno 106 sounded to me. Increasing the modulation rate will make the chorus modulate faster. Let's try wander mode. And we'll save granular for later. I think the chorus for this sound sounds the smoothest. Over here on the right side of the device, we also have a unison mode. It's a nice detuning unison we can apply. The harmonics up here, you can kind of use this in a few different ways. If you turn the harmonics down to just one, it's only going to listen to the low end of the spectrum. The more harmonics we can kind of add in more higher harmonics. And the way I think about this is kind of like a low-pass filter built into the Resonator. But since we want this piano kind of bright, let's keep it there. So that sounds cool. Let's go on to our bass. Let's see if the Spectral Resonator can do anything for our bass. So it's just like a standard kind of very generic, simple slap bass. Let's toss the Spectral Resonator on and see what happens. So if it's just on internal mode, it's not picking up all the different notes that it's playing. It's still triggering it to play, but in this case, if we want to tune it up or tune it down, we need to change the frequency knob over here. We can switch it from hertz to notes mode, and we can jump to specific notes, but it's not really playing with the bass. So what I'm going to do is switch it to MIDI mode, send the MIDI in from the same track that it's on. In this case, if we look at our MIDI notes, I can see that they're monophonic. We're only having one note play at a time. So that's what I'm going to keep the mode here. And let's hear how that sounds. Let's try it. So that sounds like it's actually playing the correct notes. Now what I'm going to do is transpose it down an octave, or -12 semitones. That's nice and fat, and it gives it a little bit more funk. Let's hear two octaves down, -24 semitones. Too low, right? So let's go at -12. Now, typically I'm not going to be putting chorus or some wandering or modulation. We could, but I like my bass being a little bit tighter down in the low end, so we'll keep the modulation off. We also We could put unison on, but again, at that point, it makes it sound less like a bass. So I'm going to turn that off. We also have a dry wet down here. We can go back to just dry. It sounds kind of generic. Now it sounds nice and lush and more like a modern instrument instead of just a generic slap. So let's hear how just the piano and bass sound now that we've ran them both through the independent spectral resonators. And let's bring some drums on. Hit it. So over here on track 4, we have a vocal. Let's bring in the vocals.
Telling the truth, telling me lies. I can't handle it, you gotta decide. Give me a high.
So I bet you can guess what we're gonna do with the vocals. So let's see what we can do. Vocals sound good by themselves, but we want these to be more like a vocoded vocal. So in this case, I dropped a new spectral resonator on the vocal track. I'm going to switch the mode to MIDI mode. And in this case, I'm going to choose the grand piano to be the MIDI input source. Again, I'm going to switch it to polyphonic mode because the chords are playing more than one note at a time. And let's just hear how that sounds. So you can hear it's playing, but there's a lot of choppiness. We're missing some of the words of her vocals. And the reason for that is because there's some gaps in the chords in the MIDI that we're sending into it. You can see right here and right here, there's these dead spaces. So what I'm going to do is make a new MIDI track, and I'm going to copy over our MIDI clip. Let's go, and I'm going to rename this just MIDI for vocal resonator. All right, or reso for short. And now I'm going to grab these chords and let's modify it a little bit. There's a dead note here we can delete. Now I'm going to go over here and hit my force legato button. That's going to fill in all the gaps so there aren't any big pauses or breaks within the notes. If I go back to my vocal track, back to my MIDI input, I'll switch it to the MIDI for vocal resonator, and let's hear how that sounds now.
Telling the truth, telling me lies. I can't handle it, you gotta decide.
In this case, we can definitely try some chorus.
Give me a kiss. There's no way back. One time it's like this.
We can tune him up, tune him down. I think keeping the transposition sounds best. We can try shifting back and forth. Well, let's turn that down.
There's no way. Telling the truth.
All right, let's switch it from chorus to wander mode. That's pretty fresh. Experiment with the modulation rate. Let's hear what happens if I turn up the pitch modulation amount. You can really hear it moving in and out of pitch. So that sounds a little bit harsh, so I'm going to keep that on 0. And let's try some unison on these vocoded vocals.
Telling the truth, telling me lies. I can't handle it.
I like it just at 2, I think, is a little bit cleaner. And just a little bit can go a long way. And now let's hear it with everything else all together now.
Telling the truth, telling me lies.
A little less unison. So let's see what happens if we toss a spectral resonator on our drum loop. And let's just see what we can do with just internal mode. So far, we've been using just our MIDI controlled mode, which it gives you the more traditional kind of vocoded results. But let's see what we can do with our internal mode. Let's try turning the frequency down, and I'll switch it to beats mode. I'll tune it to a D since this song is in the key of D minor. Turn up some decay time, and right away we're kind of like turning this drum beat into a bass line. Now we can shift it up, shift it down, do some stretching. The unison is very interesting. Let's hear it with the dry wet turned down. and we'll bring it all together. Yeah, so that's the Spectral Resonator. I hope you guys try it out and find some even more interesting and creative uses for how you can use it to make things sound more lush or vocode or do some even more experimental things that we've never heard of before. I think this tool can be very powerful in kind of making completely new sounds that no one has ever heard or used in music before. And pause and just one final closing tag. With more Ableton certified trainers than anywhere else, Slam Academy is the best place to learn how to create your own sound using Ableton Live 11. Right now, you can enroll in our flagship online programs for less than $100 a month. We will get 6 hours a week interaction time with expert instructors in our high-res virtual classrooms. Can't wait to work with you. Go to slamacademy.com and enroll today. Take it easy.
Discover your own sound at America's leading digital audio academy, Slam Academy. An Ableton certified training center, Slam offers in-depth courses in sound design, mixing and mastering, DJing, and more in Minneapolis, Denver, and online. Only at www.slamacademy.com.